come to the right spot. It's another edition of Lewis at Large. 60 minutes of smart talk radio is in your future with guests from all walks of life and all points of view. And now with this week's edition of Lewis at Large, here's your host, Warner Lewis.
Well, welcome back, everybody. Yours truly, Warner Lewis, from the flight deck of Lewis at Large Radio. And as you know, Smart Talk Radio is in your future. This segment, absolutely no exception. We are very excited to have with us Patricia Aburdene. She's one of the world's leading social forecasters. She's the author of Megatrends 2010. She also collaborated with John Naismith on the publishing phenomenon Megatrends a few years ago, as you all remember. She co-authored the #1 New York Times bestseller Megatrends 2000. We are going to be talking today about a subject we have covered at some levels before. The work is called Conscious Money, Living, Creating, and Investing with Your Values for a Sustainable new prosperity. As they say, Patricia, nothing like a good introduction. That's nothing like a good introduction.
Well, I thank you for that, Warner. It's terrific to be with you today and with the good people in your area.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a little bit chilly here. I understand you live in the Northeast. I would assume it's a little chilly back there.
It definitely is. It's probably about 20 out there right now.
Well, let's warm everybody up here. The subject of money, wealth, success, and what do we do with it, and what are some of the social responsibilities that may or may not go along with that? That is a subject that's been important to you for a long time, is it not?
That's so true. That's so true. I mean, I think it was with me in the Megatrends books, but certainly when I published Megatrends 2010, The Rise of Conscious Capitalism, that was very much on my mind. And, you know, I know a lot of folks are disgusted with Wall Street and with the whole financial sector, as well they might be. But my message is, don't fail to see that there are a lot of good things happening out there in the business sector, because there are people who are determined to have their values inform the way they run their businesses, and from a personal finance perspective, the way they make their financial choices. And that has the potential to really change the world. So that's the positive news in an otherwise, in the eyes of some folks, dismal sector.
Patricia, we are still coming out of a very difficult economic time. Let's dial back 3 or 4 years and put ourselves back at the beginning of what we'll loosely refer to here as the economic crisis. At that point, when it suddenly becomes a race or a struggle for even just pure survival, do some of this social consciousness and some of the higher level values, do those go out the window?
Oh, heavens no. Oh, heavens no, Warner, because if you do that, you're going to be right back in that same precarious economic situation again. Conscious money is about the notion that values should and indeed must shape your financial choices and decisions. This is true whether you're a corporation or an individual like you and I. Now, that doesn't mean that you simply allow values to shape these choices. You balance that by practicing good, sound money sense. And if the financial sector, if Wall Street had that as their motto, we would never have had the Great Recession. Because when values go out the window, so does sound judgment. And we need sound judgment when we make financial choices.
What about, do you find, and because I know you work with a wide variety of companies across the country, are you finding more and more that people are adopting and going into their business, not changing in midstream, but setting up businesses with this kind of mentality in mind?
Oh, they are. They most definitely are. You look at the entrepreneurs in Gen X and Gen Y, and they are determined from the get-go to succeed financially, certainly, but to do so not by violating their values, but by embodying and living them. And it's a whole lot easier, as one person in a seminar once said to me when we were discussing the difference between old line business and modern business, said to me, birth is infinitely easier than regeneration. So, you get it right from the start. You don't have to worry about transforming your company and changing this and changing that. You build the positive values into the business model from the get-go, and you have a very solid basis. So, yes, a lot of young people are doing that now. They're standing on the shoulders of people maybe your age and my age who tried to do the best they could, but I think that there's a very interesting relationship between the baby boomers and Gen Y in particular, because I know that my friends and I, the women that I was in women's groups with, and the other people who work very, very hard to live their values in business, were up against, in the 70s and the 80s, the old model of the industrial period, where it was command and control, where it was top down. And we were then, by the 70s, but certainly by the late 70s and into the later times, we were already in the information period where those old systems didn't work, but we had to kind of buck the system. And so we tried to live our values as best we could. We tried to innovate, but we were really kind of swimming upstream. And we passed these values, especially the value of creativity and innovation and sustainability, onto our children, and they're leading the parade now. Thank heavens.
Patricia, let's kind of do a little exercise here. There's a listener of ours, let's say in the Lawrence area, that is very excited about starting a restaurant. They've got some business acumen. They've actually got some experience in that. And it's going to be sort of a medium-sized restaurant. What kinds of things should be entering their thinking? And I know you're not trying to put values into their mind, but overall, what should they be thinking about in terms of a social consciousness, values, etc.?
Well, I think the big picture that I talk about is conscious capitalism. And that's very important because it takes a holistic approach to value, to business. Now, even though I wouldn't want to put values into their heads, I would want to ask them to identify, if I were their consultant, what are your values? What are the values that you really believe in? What are the values you want to embody in your business? More importantly, perhaps, if you can say that, I'm maybe pushing the point a bit, what are the values of your customers? And if you are going into business in the Lawrence area, I'm going to have to bet that sustainability, health, well-being are going to be among the top values that your customers espouse. And so if you want to reach them, if you want to sell to them, if you want to market to them, you have got to demonstrate to them that, in business we always talk about what's the value proposition, meaning what kind of value do you get for your money? Well, that's important. But what is the values proposition? What are the values that this company stands for? Do they line up with my values as an individual who might patronize that company, who might frequent that restaurant? So that's a very, very important question. Look at the big picture, I would say. Yeah, you want to do well, you want to be successful, you want to earn a profit, but the way you're going to do well is by looking by all of the components of your business being able to thrive. We talked about the customers. You've got to satisfy them. You've got to have employees that you can rely on, that you can trust, that you can depend on, and they've got to trust you. So you have to have a positive relationship with them. So in addition to the profit and the investors, if you're a large corporation, you've got to take that holistic view and bring in the employees and bring in the customers and bring in your suppliers. If you have a good relationship with your suppliers, you're going to be able to get what you need when times are tough. So take the big picture. And the amazing thing, Warner, is that studies show that this holistic approach to business, or conscious capitalism as I and others call it, outperforms financially traditional business. So I can cite you all kinds of examples. We can come back to that if you like, and numbers and all. But the point is that we have to change the way we think about business. We have an old way of thinking of it. You got to be lean, you got to be mean, that's how you succeed. That just isn't true anymore because people have changed. They're suspicious of business. They want you to be able to show them that you're different from the average business person, that you really stand for something.
Well, if you just joined us, here's truly Warner Lewis from the flight deck of Lewis at Large Radio. Got a good one going here. A spirited discussion with Patricia Aburdene, one of the world's leading social forecasters, author of Megatrends 2010. Also worked in collaboration with John Naismith back in 2000 on Megatrends, which we are all most familiar. We're talking specifically today about the work, a brand new one called Conscious Money, Living, Creating, and Investing with Your Values for a Sustainable New Prosperity. Patricia, let's follow up. They may very well be obvious, but in your mind, share with our listeners 2 or 3 well-known companies that follow this model to a T from your perspective.
Well, one of my favorite ones is a retailer, and it's one that I'm not sure is in your region. You can certainly tell me if it is, and that is Whole Foods Market.
Yes, they are here.
There?
They are here.
Okay. That is
They're in the area.
A great example for a company because you can walk into the store and you can see what I mean by it. I mean, if I talk to you about IBM, maybe you'll see how things work at IBM, maybe you won't. But if I tell you Whole Foods, you can go into the market and see how it goes. At Whole Foods, all of the people who work there are called team members. They're never called employees. That's just a little nomenclature issue. The more important issue is that they all get profit sharing, stock options, very decent salaries, very decent benefits because of this holistic approach to business, because the company embodies the kind of values that are important to their customers, which in this case are, again, health, sustainability, well-being. We should get into later about how the issues of health are moving from organic food, still very important, local food, hugely important, to other areas like cleaning products. What kind of stuff is in that? Cosmetics, but that's a different topic. So finishing up with Whole Foods, it is very important to Whole Foods to make a profit. They're a publicly traded company. They have to make their investors, their shareholders happy, but they realize that the way that you do that is to deliver what your customer wants and to have a big initiative at Whole Foods, positive relationships with their suppliers, and on and on and on. So the question is, well, what if you can make more money as a corporation? And Whole Foods is definitely a darling on Wall Street. By taking this holistic approach? Well, the evidence increasingly shows that you can.
What about, let's shift it now. We have been talking about social responsibility and particularly those that own the companies, that own the businesses as they set those up. Let's move it now to the consumer side, and let's talk about the everyday consumer, the choices that they make and the purchases that they make. Share from your point of view how they should orient themselves when making these purchases.
Well, now we're really shifting from what I call conscious capitalism to conscious money. And in fact, that's what my new book is about, although I have a whole lot about conscious capitalism in it as well. So in Chapter 1, right at the beginning, right as we get started, I start by saying to people, your money life is not about the money that's in your bank account. It's not about your stock portfolio. It's not about your savings. It eventually gets there, but it starts with what's going on within you. So the first thing that I advise people to do is to discover which values are most important to them. And I created a list of sample values, and I kind of thought to myself, Patricia, this is pretty basic. I don't know if people are going to go for it. But, the workshops I've given, people are absolutely fascinated by this little exercise of looking at the values, and I ask them to identify their top 5 values, and then to try to identify their number 1 value. And most people find that kind of hard. Some people say, sorry, I can't do it. I've got a tie here between 2 of them. So when you know what your values are, they can help you to make positive financial choices. And Warner, the mainstream financial universe, business as usual, and a lot of the money gurus who are on TV, even some of the good ones, say, look, it's all about money. Never mind about your values. Later on, when you're rich and famous, you can maybe give some of your money away or whatever. But that can't be true. It's not true, because values influence our choices, and our choices write the story of our life and our financial life. And I believe that positive values can help you make better money decisions, hardly worse, but better, because when you honor your values, you've engaged your heart. That's good. That's important, especially when you've also honored your head. I mean, I never advocate people going off in one direction. You've got to have a balance. You've got to satisfy your head. You've got to satisfy your heart. And when those two are in balance and in alignment, you're more emotionally stable. You have better judgment. You can make good investment decisions. We haven't moved on. We're on consumer now. We haven't gotten to the investor yet, but you're going to have better judgment, and you're going to make better choices. You're going to have a clear sense of where you want to go and how you're going to get there.
Patricia, what about those that say, on paper this sounds tremendous, but you know what? It's Saturday morning. I'm in a hurry. I need toilet paper and I need to pick up a thing of toothpaste. I don't have time to work through all the issues to find which one is politically correct to purchase.
Well, I don't want you to purchase something that you think is politically correct. I want you to purchase something that it reflects your values. And so think about it now. Think about it when you're driving in the car or sitting down with your morning coffee and say, what's important to me? And think about, where can I get? Now, you're never going to eliminate cost issues from your financial choices. So you might want to say to yourself, all right, I love Whole Foods. Yes, I do. I'm going to buy my produce there. I'm going to buy my seafood there. But I'm probably not going to buy my toilet paper there. Yeah, I can get 7th generation over at Target, and it's going to probably cost me less money. Watch, I'll say that, and Whole Foods will end up being cheaper,
right,
because that is a bit of a stereotype. But, make sound judgments. Think about where you're going to buy your toothpaste. Whole Foods would be a very good place to buy your toothpaste, whereas your toilet paper, if you know the brand you want, 7th generation, I would say, or one of those great non-toxic recycled paper brands, just buy it at the place where it's the least expensive, and buy it in quantities, and hopefully you won't have to rush and buy toilet paper. This happens to me all the time, so you've hit a sore spot here, and that I'm in the grocery store, and I'm like, I really don't want to buy my toilet paper here, but we're down to just a couple of rolls, and I guess I'll buy this small amount, and then I'll go and get the brand I really want later on at Target.
What about, and again, I this is why I want to give you this opportunity here. There are those that are be thinking, again, this sounds really good, but for the everyday consumer that struggles paycheck to paycheck, do they still have this same opportunity, do you believe?
If they think about it, they do. I think that in terms of really people who are really struggling, they're not going to have the discretionary income of a middle-income person or a well-to-do person. But there are more options everywhere. I just mentioned really good green brands and sustainable brands. And I think it's a myth also to think that people who are struggling and people who don't have a lot of money don't care about the environment. I've found that that's not the case. They care about the environment. They want to have it both ways. They want to be able to make a difference and do so at a reasonable cost, and I think that's an entirely fair place to be, and hats off to those folks who make that choice.
Well, there's no question. Just looking at the pure advertising, whether it's television, print, etc., that many companies are referencing social responsibility, environmental responsibility, investment responsibility. This is undoubtedly happening in the United States. Are you finding it also happening worldwide?
It's definitely happening Europe is way ahead of the United States. Anyone who looks at this will tell you that. But it's definitely coming alive in Asia. And I had a client call to have me do a talk in Moscow, and then another client call after in Brazil. And I wanted to look up some research, which I just did the other day, on what's called the LOHAS consumer. That is, LOHAS stands for Lifestyles of Health and Sustainability. LOHAS consumers are extremely important in the U.S. and Europe. And so I'm like, all right, can I find any numbers on the LOHAS consumer in, say, Russia or Brazil? I found fantastic information which showed that a similar, not as high as Europe, definitely. They say that sometimes it is said that half of German consumers are interested in health and sustainability. In the U.S., maybe 20-25%. Coming on strong in places like Russia, and in Brazil, already the same percentage as the U.S. So it is, again, a myth. It's a bit of an ethnocentric myth, I think, to think that only Americans and Canadians care about these things. Not so. Health, sustainability, conscious money, conscious business are global phenomenon.
Well, we could go on forever. We are talking to Patricia Aburdene, a well-known author, numerous books, including Megatrends 2000s and more. Today, specifically, we're talking about a new work called Conscious Money. Patricia, as we start to wind down here, someone says, okay, I'll bite. I'm in on this. Where do they start?
Well, we talked about starting with your values, and then thinking about how you translate those values in the marketplace. So then we start thinking about who are the companies. I mean, some people aren't that interested in business, but I would say just pay attention for a while and start thinking about what the kinds of companies that you'd like to do business with. Are you against Wall Street banks? Well, maybe there's a local bank that you could put your money into. Maybe there's a local credit union that even gives a higher interest rate than the local large bank that's in your community. So start thinking about who the financial partners are, and start thinking about the kind of companies that you admire, and ask your financial investor if they would make sound investments. So think of it in terms of consumer. We have four basic economic roles. We're consumers, we're investors, we're earners. Think of where you'd like to work. And we're contributors. Think of where you'd like to make your contribution. So start with your values. Think about the kinds of businesses, companies that you might want to partner with in these four economic roles of yours, and then you're starting to really practice conscious money.
Okay. We could go on and on here, but again, we have to stop. The work is Conscious Money. It's published by Beyond Words Publishing. Patricia, probably our listeners know, but how can they get a copy of the work?
Well, why don't you come on my website, patriciaaburdene.com, which is, my last name is spelled Aburdene, but our friends at Google will probably correct your spelling if you get it wrong. And on the homepage, you can read Chapter 1. You can see that list of values and read Chapter 1, and then from there I'll give you a button to buy it on Amazon or at Barnes & Noble or at my publishers. Or go straight to Amazon or Barnes & Noble. My publisher won't mind.
Okay. Well, listen, hey, thank you so much for spending part of your day with us. Appreciate the work, the energy, the past works, and we would love to have you back on again sometime.
Oh, thanks a million. It's such a pleasure to speak with you, Warner.
You bet. We will be back with more right after this on Lewis at Large.